Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business. Hey, it's Michael Zapersky, and today I'm very excited to have Jessica Lederer joining us. Jessica, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right, so let's get right into it here, Jessica. For those who don't know you, just take a moment and explain what you do.
I am founder, CEO of Ingage, Inc., which is a workplace strategy firm that helps organizations that are moving or thinking about how they can leverage their physical space better, do so in a way that maximizes employee engagement, productivity, and the kind of culture that they're trying to create.
Got it. And you started your career as an OD, organizational development consultant, is that right?
Yeah. Spent 10 years in the high-tech industry in Silicon Valley doing organizational development work, which is around leadership development, talent management, organizational development in general, organizational design, and then transitioned to look specifically at the physical workplace through a series of different projects and clients that I was working with that got me really interested in this field, and then started this company.
So yeah, let's kind of go back to those earlier days when you were an OD consultant working, as you said, kind of in high tech. Tell us a little bit more about what types of companies, like specifically what size companies were you working with? Just a little bit more of like what your average client back then looked like.
Yeah, so in the beginning, I was an internal consultant, meaning that I was working at Oracle doing internal OD consulting at Oracle. When I went into my own consulting, my clients ranged the gamut. I wrote a book on generational stereotyping in the workplace, and that book got me to speak at a lot of different engagements all over the nation, various conferences, private events. Speaker agency from New York City reached out to me and asked me to represent me, so they started getting me gigs speaking all over the place. And then that got me exposure to a really diverse group of leaders. So I would work with Toyota and Lockheed Martin, and then nonprofit museum in a small town in California. I would work with PBIDs and space planners and building planners, and I would work with cities. I would work with the state of California, and then I would work with national, global network marketing organizations. So my specialty was not so much in what kind of client I was serving, but more so in the work that I was doing, which I found to be fairly difficult when it came to marketing, because I was serving such a wide variety of people that it made it a lot harder to speak to clients about, I am the right person for you because you are my client.
Yeah, I can see that. And that's a really great point. I think we should definitely dive a little bit deeper into that in just a few moments here. But you start off, you mentioned that this book kind of launched a lot of things. Would you say that it was the book that helped you to get your first few clients once you left Oracle and kind of went out on your own as a consultant?
The book was certainly a catalyst for exponential growth, but I was doing consulting before the book, honestly. It was through networking, through connections, through introductions, people that I knew in my professional circles that knew what I was capable of and would recommend me. So I started before the book technically, but once the book happened, I started getting unsolicited contacts from people saying, can you come in and can you help us?
So take us back to that day when you left Oracle. You kind of hung out your shingle and said, yeah, hey, I'm a consultant now. I can help. What did you actually do? How did you go about leveraging your network to create those early conversations that led to your first piece of business?
It was a relationship building at a very raw level. And so I met with as many people as I could over coffee, over lunch, over happy hours, over drinks, and just said, listen, this is what I'm doing now. And I could really use your support and introductions to anyone that you think might be needing this. This is the kind of thing that I do. Part of it was coming up with a really clear elevator pitch about what organizational development is, because the language is so vague and all-encompassing that not a lot of people know what that is even. And so I experimented with different buzzwords that would maybe resonate with people. And at one point it was internal employee culture transformation, and then it was leadership development and talent management. And all these different things would resonate with some people and not others. But really, it was just asking for help. It was reaching out to people and saying, hey, I am doing this. I am scared. I would love your support. Is there anyone you could introduce me to in a hard call kind of way? Not just, hey, you should meet Jessica. She's cool. But just say, hey, I know about Jessica's skill set in this area. She could be really good for your organization. Do you want to meet with her? So that I knew that the meetings that I was getting were going to lead somewhere.
You said that you were scared, or at least that was something that you mentioned to people, like you're venturing into the zone of the unknown, right? Those kind of uncharted territory. A lot of people who are in that place when they're endeavoring into something new, when they feel that fear, they would use that as a reason, excuse not to push, not to get in front of a lot of people. They would try and perfect everything before actually going out and having those conversations. What drove you? Because it sounds like you were really engaging in a lot of conversations, even though you did maybe have some fears. There were a lot of unknowns for you. What was going on in your mind at that time?
Well, I have been a big fan of design thinking for a long time, and design thinking principles encourage people to fail fast. And so that's what I was doing. I was just out there failing fast. And so I would see what worked and what didn't. It was stress testing my ideas about what might work and what might not when building the business. So I could see real time what was working and what wasn't. And sure, there were some missed opportunities, but I also think there were many more opportunities that were created because I wasn't afraid to just have the conversation before I was even ready. I mean, I didn't have a website when I got started. I just said, this is what I do.
Yeah, that's such an important message for people to hear because, all the time there's people reaching out who say, I'm holding off doing these things because I need to have my website ready, my brochure ready, and I have to have my messaging perfectly intact before I try and build my business. And it's just reason after reason not to take the action that, as you are sharing with us, like you just took the action, but based on that, that's what actually helped you to refine and optimize and improve what you were doing to just make it better and better.
Yeah, there's real-time feedback that you get in taking action, and you'll know what's working as soon as it happens, and you'll know what's not as soon as you get the door slammed in your face.
Definitely, 100%. The other thing that you said, which actually made me smile as I was listening to you, you're talking about this book that just launched you into all these different places. People are reaching out and speaking agents, this, that, and the other. You made it sound really easy. What did you do? Like, did you just write a book and say, hey, here's the book to the world, and like people consumed it? Or did you do a lot of promotion? What did you do to actually get that kind of response from writing a book? Because there's a lot of people that have written books that have done absolutely nothing for it.
Yeah, that's a great question. And people always ask me what my second book is going to be, and I can't get there because the reason my book was successful is because I had a topic that was interesting to people at that time. And frankly, my writing is pretty all right. It's not that exciting. I mean, it's not that great. It's just the topic of generations. It was millennials in the workplace. What are we doing stereotyping these millennials when we talk about how to engage and retain and attract talent of that generation? Everyone was freaking talking about that at the time. And my theory was we need to stop talking about what millennials want because they are a diverse group of people that are all very different. And it's lazy leadership to put them all in one bucket and say this is this golden solution for how to attract and retain millennials. The real work is treating everyone as diverse group as they are and accepting that we're going to have to do the hard work of understanding our employee population one by one. And so I think it was just the right message at the right time, and people were so interested in it. So that was one. In terms of my second book, I have plenty that I could write about, but nothing that I think is really interesting to people right now. The stuff I want to write about, like workplace strategy, how to get the most out of your real estate to engage employees, I don't think that's going to go do nearly as well because people don't really care.
Let's come back to that first book though, for just a moment on that first book. So I get that the right place, kind of right time, like the message resonated, right? Really important in all marketing. But what did you actually physically do with the book? Was it published by a big publisher and they did a publicity campaign around it? Like what actually happened to take that book from you publishing it to it creating the kind of results that it did for you?
Okay, so first things first was I set a rule for myself that I was going to write 15 minutes a day. I'm going to make this long story short because I thought if I write 15 minutes a day, I'll get it done more quickly. And the very first day when I sat down, I didn't want to write because I knew I was just going to want to procrastinate. And so instead, I researched publishers. And the way that I did that was I went on LinkedIn and I Googled biggest business book publisher in the world, and I found that it was Wiley. And then I LinkedIn searched for editors at Wiley and found someone in San Francisco. And I sent her a LinkedIn message and said, hey, I am writing a book on generational stereotyping. Are you interested? And I had a book contract a week later. So the first thing is not being scared to approach the big dogs for publishing. I wouldn't self-publish because I think that there's a perception that it's not as credible of a book. And so I would at least try to get in front of the big dogs for publishing before you give up and do the self-publishing thing. The second thing I did was I hired a PR firm when I finished writing the book out of New York that had experience with book PR. It got my name out there. And so the thing that they did was they got me, I thought it was going to be like book signings and really fun like book tours and media things, but it was really actually just writing a bunch of articles for Forbes and Inc. and all of those big clicky kind of news sources where people go to read about management tips. And so I was writing like more than ever after I wrote the book for these articles, which was just like regurgitating the content of my book. And then that online presence then made me more Googleable. So then when I would speak, people would see me being an expert in all of these different online publications. And so it just gave me credibility. And the third thing is, I don't want to sound like I always sound braggadocious when I say this, but I think I'm a really good public speaker and I'm funny and I know my material and I keep it quick and I practice a lot. So the best thing for my speaking career was just being good, because I would get referrals from every time I speak, people will email me the next day. Hey, I saw you speak yesterday. I thought you were really great. And could you come and speak at this other conference? That got me more leads for speaking engagements than the speaking agency even did, than any of the outreach I did to push my content out there. It was like the number one thing that got me more gigs.
I love how you break that down. People can see like it wasn't just one thing, right? You didn't just try like one big thing, put all of your eggs in one basket. It was all these little investments and decisions that you made that compounded together to create a result that snowballs and continues to clearly help to build your business and your brand.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, so you did the consulting thing on your own for a while after leaving Oracle. But one thing that I noticed about your career is it looks like you went kind of back into the corporate world at one point, working with Fulcrum Property, I think maybe until last year or so, being their chief revenue officer. So unless I'm getting that wrong, I'm interested to know why you went from kind of independent consultant back into the corporate world and now back out to kind of being a consultant and running a consulting, type of business. So just kind of take me through that transition, what was going on in your mind and the reasons behind that.
Yeah, good question. So Fulcrum they were always a client of mine. And so it started that I was doing 10 hours a week there. And then because we just jived well, my role grew. And so I was always an hourly consultant for Fulcrum, but my role was such that I was doing so much. I was working there 30 to 40 hours a week that they gave me the title and it looked like I was an employee there, but I was never actually an employee there. So the consulting never ended. They weren't my only client at the time. They were my most time-consuming client, but I was still doing work elsewhere as well. And it was actually in doing the work with Fulcrum, which is a real estate development company, a really super impressive cutting-edge real estate company, where I would see tenants that were moving into our properties dealing with these space design issues and how they could get the most out of their employees when they were making decisions about the move, that launched this new focus around Ingage Inc., this company that I am now running. It just created that niche, because how I was talking about earlier, I didn't have a niche because I kind of did all things to all organizations. And this was, if you're moving, you're the person I need to talk to. And having that kind of power in marketing was really change making in terms of building business, because I could tell you exactly whether or not you were my client. Are you moving? If you're moving, you're my client. Are you changing your space? If you're changing your space, you're my client. Now, the work that I'm doing actually goes way beyond just the physical space, because culture is made up of an ecosystem of different things that happen. Physical space is one of 10 things in that ecosystem. Leadership, autonomy and authority, performance management, technology, all of those things are all part of the ecosystem. And I'm diving into that when we're doing the organizational development work. So I'm still consulting as if I always had, at an organizational development level. It's just within the context of this physical space question. And can I add another thing about that?
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
So one of the things I found really powerful about this, which is now I'm like totally exposing my insecurities and mental headcaseness. But one of the things that I found challenging when I was consulting generally was that, I am a young-ish, like I'm 35 years old. I've got blonde hair. Sometimes it's hard to convince the CEO of some company that's been the CEO for 30 years, who's a 65-year-old gray-haired guy, that he needs leadership help and he needs it from me. And even if he is convinced that he needs leadership help from me, he might feel challenged to announce to his team, I need leadership help, and this is who I've hired to do it. There's just like an optics thing that made it challenging that I noticed. And I would lose business to gray-haired older guys all the time that were not as good as what I do at what we do, but they looked the part. And with the office relocation spin on it, it's a way to say, well, yeah, I'm the leader of this organization, but I don't know about office relocation. I don't know about physical space and how that will affect employee productivity. So I'm willing to ask for help from this person who may not look the part. But clearly, it makes me feel safer to say I need help from this in this particular area, even though I end up doing all these other things. So there was also kind of an unconscious bias thing that I was addressing with being a young woman consultant that is more challenging, I think, than being an older guy consultant.
That's a great example, I think, of looking at something that potentially could be seen as a weakness and turning it into a strength, right? You're finding a hook, right? You're finding a way to make what you're doing kind of more accessible to those people that you're going after. So I think that's really clever. One thing here, Jessica, that really I found interesting about your business model is it looks like you've almost productized your service offerings. So you have two packages, is that correct?
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
Yeah, I did productize my business. Thank you for noticing that.
So talk to me about that, right? Because especially like in your business where there's like a lot of complexity, I could see when someone's relocating their offices, right? There's a lot of different moving parts and pieces and time and all that kind of stuff. So just take us through, like, why did you productize? Why did you decide to take your consulting business and productize your service offerings?
That's a great question. So first of all, I had spent years consulting, knowing that most of the energy I was putting into building my business was into putting together proposals. And I'm doing 10 hours of work for clients that haven't signed the contract yet. And then it ends up being a waste of time because they don't go with me. So I was sick of all of the lost ROI on my time for clients who wanted like a very specific proposal to what their needs were, that because they're so special. And even though they were all kind of versions of the same thing, I just thought that was a complete waste of time. Second is there's something about the model of consulting in which, you get paid some deposit and then you do the work and then you get paid on the back end. And when I was doing some of the federal work that I did and the state work that I did, some of the times they wouldn't pay anything until after it was already complete. So I'd have to do all of the work. As I started to hire contractors to help support the business, there was a cash flow issue with that didn't make a lot of sense, that I was having to pay them before I could pay myself. And there was also complexity, even though these projects are highly customized and I would come up with these different estimates of how much time it would take me and then price it out accordingly. I wasn't always right about how much time it would take me. And so it was difficult to have these different models of like, okay, you're going to be paying me on a retainer. You're going to be paying me on a project basis. You're going to be paying me on an hourly basis. I had different models all over the place and it was just complicated. So when I heard about how to productize a consulting business, it made so much sense to me. And one of the people that really motivated me to do this was a friend of mine that I've known for 20 years now, who is a blue-collar window washer in Colorado, who lives in his sister's basement and is, from all outside appearances, not a very successful business owner, although he does have his own window washing business, which he alone runs and operates, and he does the window washing and he builds the business by flyering. And what he said was, when he puts his flyers out, sure, if he says it's going to be $250, some houses are going to be a little bit bigger and he's not going to get what he should have gotten, but some houses are going to be a little bit smaller and he's not, he's going to get paid overpaid. So at the end of the day, rather than overcomplicating pricing, he's like, everything is $250. I don't care what your house is. In the end, it's going to even out. And the headache it reduced for him was worth the few times he was at a big house and thinking I should be getting paid more than $250 for this. And so it was the same concept with me. All of my pricing is based on number of employees, and those number ranges are large. I have one range that's, I think it's like 160 to 500 people. If you have 161 people, you're going to pay the same as if you have 499 people in your company. And so on some of these clients, I'm losing a bit. On some of these clients, I'm gaining a bit. But ultimately, it's so simple and it saves me a headache.
Got it. So your pricing model is based on not just like the single number of employees, but you have employee ranges. So from 100 to 500 employees, it's this set price. If you have 501 employees to 1,000 employees, it's this. If you have 1,001 to 5,000, just as an example, it's this price.
Exactly.
Got it. And how many tiers of pricing do you currently have?
8.
8. Okay. So your ideal clients can inevitably kind of fit into one of those tiers.
Yeah. And it's really transparent. When they go to our pricing website, they can look it up and they can see what the price is. And they know that they're getting the same price quoted to them as every other client. And it's based on employees because they may have a really small real estate footprint because they have a lot of teleworkers. And so then the work that I'm doing might have to do with how do we engage our teleworkers to be more collaborative with the people on site. And so it's still a lot of work. It's not about the real estate. It's about the people.
Right. Got it. So do you actually show your pricing on the website? Because I think when I saw it, it said like schedule a consultation or talk to us. At what stage do people actually see your pricing?
Once they're interested. So I do have a hidden webpage with the pricing. So once they say, okay, once they've scheduled the consultation, I get in front of them. I make sure that they are aware of exactly what we do because some people reach out and they think that we're going to help them move furniture or, we don't do that. We're a culture organization. So once the first level of conversation, then I send them to this secret page that has all of the pricing so they can see what it is with everyone else that's interested.
And based on the tiers that you now have with your pricing, I mean, coming back to what you were just talking about, do you still find that with some projects, they're less profitable, but others are more profitable? Like, is there still kind of that margin for quote unquote error that happens with this structure in your business?
Definitely. But I'm okay with that margin for error. I've packed that in. And one of the things that our model includes, people have to pay up front. So they can pay online. They pick their number of employees. They pick their package. Then they click purchase. They put in their credit card information and it's paid for like a product that you buy online. And I get the money up front. I can pay my contractors up front and then I do the work. And that's a very different model than the traditional consulting model.
And how large can some of these packages get? I'm just thinking about someone sitting behind their desk. They have to use the company credit card. I mean, are people paying for like $50,000 or $100,000 or more at one time, or these packages tend to be less than that?
Well, it varies. So right now, if you were to look at here, for one, I'm going to look it up. For 1 to 14 employees, the package is $23,000. But I mean, I'm working with a client right now whose complete package was $225,000.
Would they pay $225 then, like on the website in one go, or are you providing payment plans for certain clients depending on the price point for them?
So I don't provide payment plans unless absolutely necessary. That's not a path I want to go down. And so when people ask about it, usually they're asking just to see if they can. And so if I'm going to lose the deal over a payment plan, then we'll negotiate. But typically I say, no, this is the model. This is how we do it. It's a productized business. You're going to have to pay up front. And most of the organizations, government agencies, public entities excluded, are totally fine with that.
And they pay with so even over $100,000, $200,000, they're paying with credit card, or when you reach a certain level, people are doing wire transfers. How do you kind of handle that?
Some are asking for an invoice and they're sending me a check in the mail. I mean, the way that they pay doesn't matter, but what I'm trying to avoid is that they pay a deposit and then they have, once the service is complete, they're going to pay me the rest of it because this service can last a year. I mean, we do work together for a very long time. So I don't want to wait for another year before I'm going to get paid for the work that I'm going to be doing.
Yeah, it's so smart that you're doing it. I think there's far too many people that are scared to do that. And then they put themselves in a position where they have to spend so much more time worrying about whether or not they're going to get paid and what's going to happen instead of just focusing on being able to deliver value for the client and creating great results because you don't have to think about payment.
Exactly. And it also gets them out of the weeds with regards to some of the work I do involves interviewing leadership, interviewing managers, understanding, having intimate conversations with people about what's working in the culture and also what's not working in the culture. And sometimes when people are overly managing the project, they're wanting me to meet, rather than meeting with this person one-on-one, why don't you meet with all 6 of these people because your hourly rate will, and that doesn't work because when I'm meeting with 6 people to ask them about what's not working, they're going to be a lot less candid and I'm not going to get at the truth. So it just allows this project fee also allows people to just back off and let me do the work the way that I will do it, knowing that it's not going to be, I'm not trying to just squeeze them for more hours.
Yeah, I like the way that you thought that out. All right, so 3 kind of quick final questions here for you. Number 1, what's been the biggest challenge you've faced with your current business?
I think it's the way to talk about an industry that not a lot of people know exists. And maybe that's just my blind spot or my area of weakness, but workplace strategy is an industry and it is just not one that many people know about. And the buzzwords of workplace strategy sounds like it could be so many different things. So I have to talk about how your real estate affects employee behavior. And then, yes, there is some real data that shows how your physical space can affect employee engagement, productivity. Because some people think, well, a change in scenery is just a change in scenery. It's not going to change behavior. And so I have to kind of reinforce and convince them that, yes, it will change behavior. And here's some examples how. And when I start talking about how open collaborative workspace does not actually allow people to collaborate more, they start to get it. But it's usually this long conversation, whereas some people are out there selling things that everyone knows what it is. I am going to be your social media person. So like, I'm going to sell you your social media presence. I'm going to do all of your tweeting. I'm going to put out all your Facebook. And people get what that is and they know that what they're paying for and they want it. Whereas this is like a kind of an industry that not a lot of people know about or exist in.
And so you find that the way that you're overcoming that is by like speaking, by putting out content around, like what's your approach to solving that?
Having conversations with people, getting in front of them. It's part of why when you go on the website, I don't just have pricing, I have schedule a consultation. So when I can get on the phone with people and have that more extended conversation about what are your challenges, what's going on with your move, where are you at in the process, then they can really start to understand what the offering is.
And what's the best way, so 3rd and final here, but very important, what's the best way for people to learn more about your work and also connect with you? Where should they go?
Well, my website is Ingage Inc., INGAGEINC.com, so people can check that out. And then my email is jessica@engageinc.com, so they're more than welcome to reach out to me on that. We have a Twitter and all that, but we've kind of slowed down on our activity online because it's just not my client. So it's not necessarily the most effective use of my time. So I would say send me an email.
Wonderful. Well, Jessica, thank you again so much for coming on. Really appreciate, what you've shared here today. I think a lot of value for people. So again, thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.